Welcome back. And we're going to clean a trumpet today. We're at the sink here. There's my piccolo trumpet. This is the shilky for anyone who wants to know. And I apologize for the lighting. My kitchen has one very bad light right there. Whoops. Right behind me. And that makes for even worse lighting than if I'm just here, right? So we're gonna take apart this horn. We're gonna clean it. We're about 2 hours before the rehearsal, and so that's not a bad time to get the horn clean, get it put back together, get a couple of notes on it, head off to the gig. Still be a half an hour early. I actually have an errand to run, and we'll see if I can stream from the gig. I couldn't figure it out on my phone earlier, but that doesn't mean I won't by then. And that's just a rehearsal anyway, right? So anyway, we're now Brandenburg C-2. And yeah, if we're going to play it on this horn, we need the fourth valve to work better than that. And it's just the super tight tolerances on this horn because I had the valves plated into. There's just no room for any gunk, and that fourth valve was the first one to get stuck always because it's the first one to encounter any moisture and any bacteria that comes from your mouth and sort of fills up the pipes, right? It's the first place where it can deposit really anything after the lead pipe. So, of course, it's the first one to stick. So, we're going to take apart this horn. I thought I would do this kind of on camera for you so you can see sort of how I do it. And not that there's anything special about it, but on a piccolo, I take the valves out first. It doesn't really matter. You can take the slides out as long as you push down the valves. Oh, we need to put this in the sink. Thank you. And I'll show you the tools we're going to use as well. But so as soon as I get all the valves out, right, there they are. I'm going to take the bottom valve caps off because I always forget to do that. First valve. You want to keep them in order as well, just in case that matters. Just in case that is a critical component of how your horn plays. And you might say, well, how could it be, Gabriel? The air doesn't go down there. It doesn't do anything. Well, yeah, but a lot of things matter that you don't think should. And, oh, I should get I don't have the Restream chat open so nobody can talk to me. Sorry about that. Now it should be up. Okay, so now we've got our bottom valve caps. We can see straight through there, right? Yeah, we got 5x5 on the app. So I'll be able to see. So yeah, you can see straight through there. That's great. Now, you can take them off in any order. I like to follow the air. That way I don't forget things. So we just said that the air goes into the fourth valve first. So I'm going to take that fourth tube out. Then I'm going to take the third tube out. All right. The second tube on a piccolo trumpet doesn't come out. So we're going to just leave it as it is. And then the first valve, which looks suspiciously like a second valve on a B-flat trumpet, because it is, that goes out as well. And then we're done, except you might notice, well, we didn't take out the lead pipe. And I could have taken that out first, but for whatever reason, because it has a screw that goes with it, I always take it out last. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. But in case you need a method, some people are very methodological, and so now you know that's a way to start. And you want to put this back tight enough where it's not going to fall out while you're washing it. Okay? So now I'll put me back in the frame because I can't. Maybe I'll go back and forth, but you can't really see down into here unless I move everything. I guess I could do that, but it's also very loud, right? And I'll try to conserve as much water as I can. I'm wearing my lab coat just because I didn't want to. I took off my dress shirt that I want to wear tonight, but I left a t-shirt on, and I thought, well, I should protect that too, just so that I don't have to change it later. So there we go. And all we're going to do, so here's the tools, right? We're going to use a mouthpiece brush, which it looks like that. This is so that when it encounters the cup, it can get a little bit better. This is thin, so it can get down in the hole. We're going to use that on our mouthpiece, right? You can see how those are shaped similarly. We are going to use a valve brush, which is about the same size, right, as the valve. Sort of get that close. Casing. So we're going to use that on the valve casings, right? And generally speaking, we're going to use a snake. This is an oversized snake. This is a trombone snake. It's not actually longer, which is troublesome because the trombone's awfully long, but they use other stuff. Like they have a big rod that they can put down with paper, like a paper towel, and sort of slide, so you just get all the gunk out. So they don't always need what we need. But anyway, so yeah, you can see this is a little bit bigger than normal, and it should still fit in all the holes that we need to clean. The valves are the only thing I'm a little worried about, and if we need to, I have a trumpet-sized snake down below in the cabinet. So there we go. That's what we're up to. We're just going to use regular clear dish soap. This is Palmolive Clear. You don't want to use certain kinds, will leave a little bit of residue behind, and you'll notice right away because it feels kind of grimy even though you just cleaned it. There's like a softness to it, and that's usually because there's like a hand softener in the dish soap for people who really get down and dirty and don't wear gloves when they do dishes, which is fine. A lot of dish soaps will have something to make your hands feel better after that experience, and you don't want those. You want something that's literally just soap in there, and you can always look at the ingredients. No, you can't. That's right. They don't list all the ingredients. But you want something that's basically saying residue-free, no heavy fragrances, that kind of thing. No unnecessary ingredients is what this one says. That sounds good to me. And you just put it right on the brush, like that. A little dollop will do you. And then you want to get that wet. And I like to also put water through the instrument where I'm about to clean it. So put it on this side. So there we go. And I use as hot a water as my hands can stand because that's never going to be so hot that it melts the silver or the lacquer off or anything like that. And then after that, it's just brushing your teeth, right? It's back and forth and side to side. You can't really do side to side, but you can twist to make sure that the bristles get in different places, okay? So, and you should see it should be sudsy like that if you're doing anything at all in there, right? So we'll rinse that out. Oh, and you know what? If I'm really smart, which I try to be, we should really do the valves first. And the reason for that is that they're going to take the longest to dry out, and they need to be as water-free as possible if we're going to put oil on them. Oil and water don't mix, as you may know. On valves, they kind of do, in the sense that water can sort of lay on part of the valve and the oil can lay on the other parts of the valve. So they don't actually mix, but they can both be on the same valve at the same time. And water is going to cause corrosion over time if you let it sit. So you don't want to have any corrosion. You want just oil, and that's going to basically keep the valve itself from being able to oxidize or corrode in any way. Okay, so let's start with the valves, and we'll start with the fourth valve. So same thing here. I'm going to use running water this time. And what I like to do is go through each tube first, make sure that the macaroni noodles are clean, and then I go over the whole valve itself like this, just back and forth, like a toothbrush would be. And then I rinse the whole thing off, making sure to get inside each macaroni joint there. And there we go. That's a clean valve. And I'm going to do these one at a time. And I'm going to put them over there for drying later. So here's valve number 3. Just getting it wet. And you'll periodically have to re-up your soap. When you stop seeing suds, that's about the time you need to do something about it. You can also see that I'm trying not to get anything that's not nickel plating wet. It's okay to get the copper above it wet, but it's not okay to get the pad above that wet. Okay? So that's what we're doing here. And that's number 3. I guess I can wipe these off once. That'll help a lot actually. With my shoulder towel here. So now, the first time I did a Brandenburg, I did this right before the concert, about the same 2 hours before, and I left all the bottom valve caps on the sink. and I was freaking out about it, and I've told this story many times, but we're not going to do that today. All right, so here's the second valve. And this is the only one that I feel like I really do need to do under running water. The rest of them, like constantly, I mean. And it's only because I don't want to touch it over and over again and touch the handle and so on and so forth. I guess I could probably pull this off and turn the water off responsibly. We'll try that. So, if anybody's watching and you have questions about anything, this is a great stream for questions, because I'm only going to play a few notes at the very, very end of it. So feel free to tell me all about it. Yeah, this isn't so bad actually. It's such a habit, you know, we get used to leaving the water running all the time when you're doing something like this that takes both your hands, and it's really not necessary. It's kind of a waste. Not kind of. It's absolutely a waste, right? So even if you can afford it, it's not about what you monetarily can afford. It's about what, you know, the world can afford. And like right now, our area has very low water pressure, and I'm not sure why, but I believe that it is that the city can't afford, together, the city is not able to afford to buy more water from the next city over, and we're not allowed to take more water out of the creek that we get, that is our aquifer, and so the water level in the water tower is lower than normal, and therefore my shower in the bathroom that's upstairs barely has any water pressure, because I'm like almost even with the water level in the tower now. So down here it's okay, but showers in the morning aren't super easy because there's nothing to it. So, okay, we've done the valves. Now the valve bottoms I could do just because I just did the valves. I guess the next thing we really need to do is the valve casings, and that means we have to do this whole body. And since we already started with it, let's keep going. So I'm going to need some more soap on this. And I've already done a video on YouTube of how to clean your horns that's more instructive. This is just, I'm cleaning this horn today. And we've talked about the reason before on the other Brandenburg streams, but essentially, the main reason is that my fourth valve just simply won't work, and some of the other valves get sticky as well unless I have very recently cleaned it. And that's no slight on the Schilke itself or anything like that. It's specifically because the plating is, I've had the plating redone to be as absolutely small tolerances as possible, so it's tight against, you know, the valve casing and the valve inside it, the piston itself, are so close to the same size that they can barely fit the thinnest layer of oil in between, and therefore it's any little material that gets in there makes them stick. So because this is piccolo trumpet, you can actually pretty well do the rest of the horn all right now. At least in terms of the valve, what do you call it? The valve slides themselves, right? So here we go. This is a tricky maneuver. Put it on there while you just want a little bit of water just to make sure it's not going to glom up. All right, there we go. We've already done the fourth valve. We turn it around. Again, remember we can't do the second valve. So that's one reason to keep your horns really clean, because if you can't do a second valve in there, you better hope that nothing grows inside that second valve, because it's never going to come out until you get it professionally cleaned, which is something that, quite honestly, I mean, there's two schools of thought on this too. One says, hold on, let me get to it. Okay, rather than yell at you. One school of thought says, well, every once in a while you need to get your horns cleaned, right? Professionally, no matter how clean you keep them. And there's some truth to that. If you play a lot, then oddly enough, you need that less because you're kind of changing the environment inside the trumpet more often. And so there's less chance for something to just kind of sit and grow. That's not strictly true. If you wait long enough, something will grow in there no matter what. But the worst thing you can do is play a trumpet really hard without brushing your teeth or something for like a week or a month or whatever, and then just put it in the case inside your cozy house, right? Because what do bacteria love? Well, they love warm, not hot, but warm, dark places. And that is the inside of your trumpet and certainly inside a case inside your house. If it's a comfortable temperature for you, it's perfectly fine for the bacteria. So now that we've done that, we want to get our valve brush out. We're going to rinse it first because it probably has some old soap on there. I try to rinse it every time, but I don't always get it. Same thing here. And since we've just done the horn, it's already nice and wet for us. So we just need to make sure we can make some suds. And we go down each top. And each bottom. I try to do one just brushing the teeth, and the other I try to twist a little bit. You get a lot of soap bubbles everywhere, but it's fine. And the fourth valve, again, that's going to be the most critical one, right? So we've got to make sure we really get that one. And then you're going to see that this is still all soapy, and it's actually a really great brush to just sort of very lightly brush the outside of the horn. It gets between hard to reach places pretty easily, and there's no reason to let this good soap go to waste. What you want to make sure that you don't do is stab the tip of it into the horn, because that'll scratch the metal, and it can be really bad over time, but also just feels bad to do. And I usually try to get the bell this way. We're running out of soap. I don't care too much if the silver is tarnished. That's fine with me. Doesn't play any different. And yeah, that's good enough for me. So, I want to get those valves. 360-degree turn. Go to the next one. All right, the next one. Get the outside a little bit on our way. Next one. And you can also, if you want, you can stop up the bottom with your hands, just to make sure water comes out freely. There we go. Yeah, not bad. See? Done. Now we've only got the valve slides themselves, right? The parts that go into these parts, right? So that's our last thing to do cleaning wise, and then we need to re-grease this horn, right? So we want to make sure that the third, first, and third valve slides move, but at different amounts. We don't want the fourth valve to move super easily, and in my case, I'm not even using it. I'm using the vented fourth valve for my double high A's. So I don't need it to move at all. In fact, I need it to not be there. But the first valve I want to be able to adjust lightly, and the third valve I want to be able to adjust quickly on the fly because it has a ring. And so we're going to grease those in different ways, but with the same grease, right? We're always going to start with lanolin wax, unless we want it to be really sticky, then we use a different thing. But we're going to start with lanolin wax, and that's good enough for the first valve by itself and for the fourth valve. And then we're going to cut that lanolin wax with valve oil for the third valve until it feels like it moves pretty easily, right? So we'll see all that in a moment, but let's finish cleaning this guy. So we're going back to the snake, and make sure that is fresh soap. You want to be careful here. Let's start with the lead pipe. You can see down it at least. Make sure it doesn't really need much, but clean the inside of that really good. And clean the outside, right? You'll see you're starting to get some red rot on this one. A lot of moisture builds up outside the lead pipe because that's the part that moves on the inner slide. So if you move it in a little bit, sorry, I'm talking while I'm cleaning. If you move it in a little bit, it's going to catch some of that moisture on the way in that you've been blowing into it. If you pull it out a little bit, then nothing new happens, but you might have a part that has moisture on it that you're now exposing to the air. So those are both bad, and they're unavoidable. You just have to keep it clean and clean it often. So. You want to clean anywhere you touch because your hand oils can, over time, they can do damage. So and the external part of a slide that needs to do the sliding part, that's also important. And you can see I'm about 5 out of 10 for turning off the water when I should. Just a bad old habit. One that I'm trying to correct. We're going to do the valve bottoms now. We're going to try to keep them in order. This is number 4. And these I am going to just do quickly with the water on because it's tedious to do it. So just a quick swirl in each one. So there's valve number 1. Okay, and let's take those over while I'm thinking about it. They don't need to be dry. I mean, I'll dry them before they go on the horn, but they don't need to dry out. There's no moving parts there, so, but we do want to sort of grab them and bring them over. Okay, now we've cleaned everything else. I can bring these over as well. We did this. We did this guy. And so now I'm down to just the mouthpiece. And my mouthpiece is a 2-part mouthpiece. So it comes apart like this. And it's good to get it apart, at least when you're cleaning it, if you haven't recently, and clean those threads out too. So I'll use the valve brush for this, and put a little bit, there we go. I'm just using these really stiff bristles in the small part of the valve brush to get into the threads as much as I can. And then that part wet, just do the inside, which is the dirty part, right? And then the cup. Try to get the whole rim nice and soapy, clean, and then the hole. And then the threads, if you want, they're really hard to get. Sometimes the outside gets really dirty for me because I lay it down on one side of the piccolo trumpet with the mouthpiece in it, and all the condensation starts dripping out the mouthpiece and just pools right on the bottom of the cup there. So it makes a spot, which is kind of gross, honestly. Unseemly, at least. Unsightly, I should say. So usually I can get those to come off, at least somewhat. Yeah, that's not bad. And if you're like me and you don't like playing a hot mouthpiece, but it won't cool down by the time you want to play it, use cold water. It'll cool down just as fast as it heated up under water. So, and then you can dry it. So there you go. That is cleaning the trumpet. Now we're going to move on to greasing it, right? And I'm gonna move you. Oh, I have some Chemexes out that I need to put away. So perhaps we'll do that real quickly while we let things dry. Yeah, why not? Okay, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna put you guys over here and see my lovely not so clean kitchen. There we go. And let me open a window here. Just for light. And there we go. So, yeah. You can see I have too much stuff on my refrigerator and all kinds of, just accoutrement. I have too much stuff in my kitchen, even though I have lots of space. Sorry. So what we're going to do is these are Chemex coffee brewers, and they have a little wooden collar that goes on them. And I am going to put these collars back on. Sort of see if I can let you guys in on the secrets here. So you want this collar, and then you've got to get this rawhide and sort of tie it around there. So it's not always easy to do because it basically doesn't want to, gravity's pulling it down while you're trying to tie it sideways. So I've done something here. I'm not sure what. Oh, I see. There we go, sort of. I've done a bad job at least. But it's kind of getting pretty tight. And then, do the same thing backwards. I try to just tie square knots because they're easier to get undone, even if it's a little bit wet. There you go. We'll put that up in the Chemex department. I believe I have 4 Chemexes, and you can see my water filter is right here. It's also Chemex shaped. It's good to have hobbies. And coffee was my job, actually, for a number of years. If you're, I was going to say new to the channel, but that implies that there was a channel, that a previous version of the channel that would have clued you in. What I should say is, if you know me in real life and you've known me for more than 5 or 6 years, you knew me as a coffee roaster, because that's what I did before, while I was teaching trumpet professionally. I was also a coffee roaster for, what was it, three or 4 years at least. Yeah. Wow. That was my job, my other job. So there's a second Chemex. This one has a little damage on it, but I just keep some duct tape on there. It's fine. And if you're interested at all, we've got, those were 2 different sizes. This is the bigger one than that. And if you're a real collector, then you've got the biggest size. This one is the 13 cup, I believe. So quite large. And then I have some things that look like Chemexes that are not, and so on. But that's pretty good. All right, so now get some water. Water is going to be, well, unless it makes me cough. Water is going to be an essential part of our plan for how we're going to get through this piece really well. The main reason is that if you're dehydrated, then your muscles are just not able to do what they need to do as well. I mean, that's not categorically true, but the feeling of it is that you feel like your lip is thin, that you have to press harder. You have a longer recovery time. So I know my students. One of my students is a bodybuilder, or I should say a heavyweight lifter and power lifter. Sure, and probably knows way more about this stuff than I do. But from what people have told me about trumpet playing and in my experience, being well hydrated is important. But I know with bodybuilding stuff, sometimes there's some tricks you do with like water weight and getting down to a weight class or up to a weight class or whatever that, I don't know, somehow matters. And so maybe it's less critical than I realize. But for me, I try to drink the recommended amount of water every day, which is your body weight in pounds, that number in half of ounces. So in other words, if you weigh 100 pounds, then you should drink 50 ounces of water, right? Very simple math. And if you drink more than that, you're overhydrated. If you drink less than that, you're not hydrated enough. And that's approximate. So it would be nice if you went a little over or just under every day. For me, that's 2 of these big guys here. This is a 40 ounce. So if I just try to get most of 2 of those down, that's pretty good. So we're just redrying everything right now. And then once we do, we'll put the lanolin wax on. That's one of the reasons we wore gloves. First of all, because it keeps your hands from getting sort of wet that whole time, right? But the real benefit is when we start to put wax and grease and oil on these things, it doesn't soak into your fingers, and so A, you use a lot less of it, and B, it's easier to put on. And C, I guess it's not gross. So and these are just Amex black nitrile gloves. They are not medical grade, so I don't feel bad using them when, well, we don't have that shortage anymore, but when we did, I had a whole bunch of these gloves, and I was like, oh no, should I donate them? But no, they can't use them anyway. So, but they are basically watertight. I mean, for what I do, they are good. But you can use any gloves. You can even use dish gloves if you want. And you can reuse those, although I wouldn't recommend doing the dishes with lanolin wax on your fingers because it'll get all over your dishes and then those spots won't be clean anymore. They'll have wax on them instead. All right, and I guess the trumpet itself, right? Oh, one thing we can also do, there can be little droplets of water down inside the valve casings, and so you can just take, this is like a flute cleaning rod for or like piccolo. It's actually made for trumpet though, and you just sort of with a piece of either cheesecloth or this is just paper towel, and just kind of twist it around in there, being sure you don't scrape the side of the valve. So just straight down the middle. If you hear metal on metal, stop, retreat, and there we go. And that'll get some of those little droplets out. It won't always get them all. I can still see some in there. Got a guy right here. Let's go and get him. Yeah, there, that's pretty good. Now, you can put the valves in first, or you can put them in last. Or I guess you could go one by one if you wanted to. Put the first valve in and put the first valve slide in. In this case, I'm gonna go all of the lanolin wax first, And then I'm going to try to wipe that finger off so I don't get any lanolin wax on the valves. And then I'll put the valves in, and then I can use all the valve oil all at the same time, right? So, and I just have, I'll put this down. You don't need to see me. So here we go with that. And it's nice if you just put the wax on all of the brass parts, right? So now we're not going to do that with the lead pipe. And the reason is because we don't want the lead pipe to fail, like to jump forward while we're playing. That would be a disaster. So the lead pipe is going to go in pretty much dry. I sometimes will put a little bit on the bottom, but I get nervous about that. So what I like to do is I take the wax and I put it on each of the metal parts, right? The exposed brass. Maybe it is better if you can see both me and the thing. Yeah, there we go. And so like you can see this has a lot of brass, right? Before the silver part. And so I'm going to get that all greased up. If you miss a spot, you'll hear metal on metal, but also that spot will be a place where air can leak easier because there's not a material that's kind of helping to keep that seal. So it won't leak a lot, but it might leak a little bit, and any amount of leak is going to make your instrument play different and feel different and be less efficient in general, probably. So, okay, so there we go. That's all waxed up. Do we have anything on the trumpet? No, not on this version. So sometimes I'll just sort of try to get inside the slides a little bit with just the tip of my finger, make sure that they're ready to receive the valve slide. We just don't want any in the valves. And like I said, I might put a little on the tip of this just to try to keep a little bit of that from. And yeah, you know what? I'm going to wipe it off right as soon as I said that, because I don't want it to grease the whole thing on the way down and then accidentally jump on me. So never mind. Or maybe that a little amount is just right. We'll see. So I'm just keeping that. I don't want any of that to get on the valves. And okay, so now let's put all that together. Put the third valve in first. Right now our valves aren't in, the pistons aren't in, so we can just put these in willy-nilly. I like to put them all the way in because that way I can wipe off excess grease. Right? Wipe off excess grease. And then I can pull them back out to where they ought to be if I need to do that. I can't remember which way this went in. But anyway, there we go. Okay, so we've got all of our valves, valve slides in. I always call the up and down parts the valves, but then if I'm talking about through the vented valve, I mean the slides, right? And already this third valve is working pretty well. I don't want to do too much to it because the more you cut it with valve oil, the more it has a chance to go kind of sideways because it's thinner, right? So this right now is keeping it really even, really middle of the road so that it slides perfectly on and off, right? If I put too much valve oil on it, then the valve oil will be more like a liquid than a solid, and it will catch, so that like as it's trying to go on, it gets sideways a little bit and catches, and that's no good. So I don't want, as long as I can move it quickly enough to play what I need to play, I'm not going to put anything on it. So right now that's perfect. Might be too perfect. So we're not going to worry about that right now. I am going to put the lead pipe in. Make sure that, and it's good if you have another nut like this in case one breaks while you're playing, which does happen. You make a little adjustment, you tighten it down good so that you don't lose it when you're playing, and it cracks. And then you're going to play sharp the whole time because it's going to go all the way in or nothing. So that's not what you want. All right. I like to put the valve bottoms on last because, or the bottom caps on last, because that'll allow any excess valve oil to sort of splash out the bottom and as I work the valves. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to go one by one. We're going to use a method that I saw They used to say put the valve in first and then put it on one side and then the other. Dave Monette's shop, though, has a video out where they say that's not the best way to do it. Actually, it's better to oil the valve sort of out here in the ether, right, on every side, hopefully without touching it, and then put the whole thing in all at once. And I agree with that. I think that's smart. So I have a towel down that's going to absorb all the excess that's going to drip off. I don't worry too much about touching it because sometimes that helps the drips come out, and I'm not very patient, right? But so, and then I shake it a little, and then make sure I look for the one. There it is. The ones all go towards the front, towards my lead pipe. 1, 2, and 3 do. And then 4 on a Schilke goes towards the bell, which makes no sense to you right now, but it's because they use some of the mandrels from the other valves. And so I don't know why I'm still not sure why they couldn't stamp the 4 on the other side of the brass part and then still use the mandrels, but I'm sure there's a reason. In fact, I think I could probably figure it out if I sat here and tried it long enough. Oh yeah, emergency tape. That's why the tape is in the bag, Robbie. That is one of the many reasons that tape in your bag is something that you can use. Although the tape that I have won't fix that problem on the Schilke. I would need regular Scotch tape because it's the tape I use is too thick. So maybe I should bring Scotch tape tonight. It's a good gig list item right there. I'm doing this dangerously close to the other valve tops, or bottoms, I mean. So you can see I'm just putting them in one at a time, checking to make sure they work. And now the moment of truth, the 4th valve. The 4th valve sticks for 2 reasons, actually. One is that it's the first line of defense, so to speak. It's the first place that bacteria and moisture can kind of coalesce and hang out together after the lead pipe, which of course doesn't move. So the first thing you notice bacteria growing on is the 4th valve. But it's also because it has the biggest surface areas with where there's just contact. Yeah, see, look, this is still not working very well. It has the longest surface area where there's no holes. So you just work it in. This is why we didn't want any water in there too, because water makes it stick a little bit. Well, it feels pretty good. You want to tighten that top down and see if it'll work. It has a third reason to not work. Robbie, I know you love all my 4th valve enumerated lists. Here are all the ways you can play double high A. Here are all the reasons that the 4th valve exists. Well, here's your new list. Here are all the ways the 4th valve can stick. So it's the first place. It's the biggest surface area that doesn't have any tubes connected to it of all the valves, so that is a longer area where if there's any stuff in there, it will stick. And then it's also the valve, the slide itself is the longest slide, which means that if it gets pushed around, which of course it's way out here, so this end of the 4th valve slide gets pushed around a lot, and so what happens is it torques the valve casing out of perfect alignment very quickly, and then either direction that you go it's like the metal is too soft. It feels like no matter what you do, you can't win, and that's true. You can't. So as you can see, I'm doing I'm put it in the bottom now, and I'm trying to get it to go around. That's getting better. It's also connected to the bell, but that's above the friction surface, so that usually doesn't matter too much. But that's starting to work now, right? And what I find is that if I pull, so this gets put, the valve, the fourth valve gets pushed up on by the cases and, you know, anything below it. So what I find is that if I use my third and fourth finger of my left hand and I pull down on that casing a little bit, which gives you good grip anyway, that pulls the valve casing over towards the third valve and down a little bit. And so if I'm feeling like it's about to stick, I'll just put a little more pressure there and it makes it not stick. So ideally, none of this would ever be a problem. But unfortunately, it is. This first valve is not feeling super great either. So we're going to just do a little bit of bottom of the valve casing to this too. What I'm doing here is trying to make sure that the valve, the bottom of the valve is, I want it to seep up, back up the valve like that. It's not the best thing to do because you can get your corks wet, but it works. So I would much rather my corks be wet and my valves work than my valves don't work, but they're in perfect alignment. So now we're done with all that. We want to, I can't feel the oil as much with my gloves on as I can with my hands. So we want one last wipe down of the horn. Then we're going to put the valve bottoms on. I'm not going to leave them at home this time. Don't cross thread anything. I used to fight with these things so much. I'd get frustrated and then I would cross thread the hell out of it because I was like, that's got to be it, you know. No, just keep turning them backwards till they click in. If it doesn't go in easy, don't force it. Especially not on a Yamaha. The Yamaha threads are very, very carefully cut, but that also makes them very easy to think, oh yeah, it's in there, and then like, oh, is it, maybe it's just sticky. That's one of the reasons we clean them out too. Okay, so valve bottoms on. Now is when I take my gloves off because, first of all, my hands are getting sweaty, right? Oh, I should have probably cleaned up my materials first, but that's okay. So, I also want to dry off my hands. I know that sounds crazy too, but it's the sweat on your hands that can sometimes pit your horns and cause undue plating loss and things like that. So you really want dry, sort of pH neutral hands. So we're just going to wait a second. What we can do, we'll put our mouthpiece together. There you go. Still works. Sometimes you'd be surprised if you don't blow any air through your mouthpiece. Sometimes you'll get on the gig and you'll be like, what's wrong with my horn? I don't understand. And you know, maybe just a little piece of a sponge, or maybe a bristle from a brush, or the student that is watching right now had a piece of spring steel in his bell. And that one you can't find so easily, but if it's in your mouthpiece, you can see it, right? And I've had lots of things that I'm like, why does my horn suck so bad? And, you know, for days sometimes. And then I finally take my mouthpiece out and look, and I go, whoa, what is that? And it's a chunk of a sponge or a chunk of paper towel or whatever, right? And it's a good reason to replace your brushes pretty often too. If you have a very old brush, it can lose bristles more easily. If you have a very new brush, it can also lose a few bristles right away. So just watch out for those things. Be careful. All right. Here, let me turn this down for your benefits. Seems to play okay. Now we're about just a little under an hour away, so I'll do my whole pre-warm up right this second. Excuse me. It's not going to be a lot because I don't want to play a lot, right? The piece is going to start with G major triads, right? I feel a little flat, but we'll find out how. I don't want to guess right now. I'll find out in rehearsal when we tune. I also am not going to play with the fourth valve in, but I'm going to leave it all the way in for now so that I can get it in and out easily at the gig. So that's something. Let's put this where I usually have it. I didn't clock my lead pipe either. Let's do that. I think that's the right way. And this goes there. If you don't know what clocking is, it's rotationally aligning things the same way that where they play the best. And if you think that doesn't matter, just try, think about it like a clock and put some artifact at 12 o'clock and then at 3 o'clock and then at 6 o'clock and just see how it's different, right? You'll be surprised. Yeah, IG doesn't feel great. But that's what we're doing now, is we're going to just calibrate so we feel like everything's great. Then we're going to take an hour off as we get to the gig, hopefully about a half hour early, and then we're going to play a couple of notes there and see how rehearsal goes. So that's fine. I'll play a couple more notes later. I've already played a lesson today and warmed up a little bit this morning, just some mouthpiece work. So that's going to be it for today. If I can, I'm not going to record the rehearsal tonight, I don't think. I might record it, but I won't live stream it, only because I don't have anybody's permission. But if I do get that permission, then maybe I'll be able to do tomorrow's dress rehearsal, or for sure, I'll set up something to stream the concert, and I'll try to stream it live if I can get Wi-Fi there. Otherwise, I'll video record it, and I will post a video. They're going to live stream it, I believe, from the venue. So you're welcome to join us that way. But I'm going to set up a special audio setup just for this stream. And if, like I said, if I can, I will stream it. But more than likely, I will record it and not stream. And then I will upload that recording later. And I'm thinking maybe it can be from maybe my perspective, or maybe it will be. I don't want it to be just the trumpet part. I want you to hear the whole group. But my miking placement might be a little bit different than the venue, and so therefore have a little bit more fidelity. I should say clarity, because it'll be closer up than their microphones to the whole group. So we'll see how that goes. I will have to think hard about that microphone setup by today and tomorrow. Maybe I'll record tomorrow's. That's probably the best idea. I'll bring the setup tomorrow and record it and see what it looks like, and then we can watch it on the stream, or I mean you can watch it, and perhaps we'll even do like a question and answer session about it if I have time on Wednesday, and then Wednesday night will be the concert. So anyway. Thanks for joining me, and I guess I'll see you tomorrow.